Can you imagine a person that has made $8 billion in a capitalist economy and has decided to give all of his accumulated wealth to charitable causes within his lifetime? If it wasn't for a lawsuit, this person's generous donations would have never been discovered. Now, keep that story in mind. We'll come back to it in a bit. But before that, let's talk about capitalism for a second. Capitalism is the most successful economic system known to date, as it generates a huge amount of value, which translates to almost everybody having more money than they would actually do. If you ask me, that sounds pretty good, right? That's why it comes with strings attached. Yes, capitalism makes most people richer than they would be if they were in the same position, let's say 100 years ago. However, it also concentrates the biggest portion of that money into the wallets of relatively few people. It shouldn't come as a surprise that nearly half of the world's wealth is owned by the richest 1%. So yes, we've seen amazing prosperity. However, capitalism, at least in its current form, suffers from some issues, such as the natural push to amass more capital, that is to accumulate even more wealth, a materialistic type of thinking, measuring success based on individual financial wealth, which I would argue is the wrong scale to use, and finally, greed. Between those four problems, can you recognize a pattern? Well, they are people problems rather than capitalism problems. And here I want you to pay attention to what I say. Capitalism is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used a variety of ways. For instance, it can bring individual or collective prosperity. However, the choice is in the hands of the people. Capitalism itself is not greed, but people have turned it into greed. Paradoxically, capitalism is not broken. It's the choices of people that are broken. That's why a shift in the mindset is of great importance. But why do people say capitalism is broken in the first place? Well, the most serious and obvious answer would be because it creates inequality. For instance, if you take a look at the Lorentz curve of any country, for that matter I've chosen South Africa, you'll clearly see that existing inequality. Ideally, you would have 40% of the population owning 40% of the national income, 80% of the population owning 80% of the national income. That would be the red line of perfect equality, which doesn't exist in any country. The Lorentz curve is the dotted curve, and the further away it is from the line of perfect equality, the more inequality present in a country there is. If you look at where the dot is positioned, you'll see that 60% of the people in South Africa own about 20% of the national income. That is an incredibly small amount for so many people. Using the Lorentz curve, we can see that an equal distribution of wealth within most countries. But we still haven't answered our question. Why do people say capitalism is broken in the first place? Inequality by itself is not the answer. Let me remind you of a saying that you've probably all heard at some point. The rich get richer and the poor get poor. It supposedly highlights one of the most problematic aspects of capitalism, that is rising inequality. However, it doesn't tell the whole story. The problem is not simply that the rich go up and the poor go down and that creates division. Not really. In a capitalist economy, the standard of living is going up and pulling everybody with it. So the problem lies in the fact that the rich get richer at an incredibly faster rate than the poor members of society do. But why is relative inequality a problem for society when things in general are improving? If we put on our human lenses, it's easy to answer that. It's a problem because people are greedy and because we compare ourselves to others. When we see somebody gaining much more wealth and power at a significantly faster rate than us, that creates a sense of injustice and unfairness. However, if we look at the bigger picture, it's a problem because it prevents society from progressing forward faster. How do we reduce inequality, though? Well, you have two alternatives. You either bring down those positions at the top, and we've seen how communism has dealt with that, or those at the bottom, those at the top have the responsibility to bring up those positions at baseline level. The reason why taxes, regulations, and waiting for the government to fix inequality don't work is because it's a constant game of cat and mouse. The capitalists try to avoid paying their taxes and to game the regulations. Then the government chases them to pay their taxes, and so on. That's why the only sustainable solution is for wealthy people and the owners of capital of successful corporations, those at the top, to learn to self-tax themselves and to understand their responsibility in the world. It's their choices that have the biggest impact. And if you think about it, whether a billionaire has 100 or $200 billion, it really has no big difference in terms of how he's going to live his life. He's probably going to drink the same coffee, wear the same clothes, drive on the same streets to work, perhaps have one or more two yachts, but those extra 100 billion could change the lives of thousands, if not millions of people. It is the rich and successful that have the clout, resources, and vision to make the big ideas a reality, to drive progress with the unpopular choices that advance society. You know, take a look at my father. As a successful entrepreneur, he could have easily retired any of these days and gone to the Maldives to drink pina coladas and lay on the beach all day. Instead, he decided to go into politics and to solve our nation's problems. What a sunny place to go to, right? And at first, I really didn't understand his choice and why he would do that to himself, to our family. But after quite some time and a lot of conversations, I could finally see his vision and understand his choice. He told me that he recognized that his success and influence have given him the power to make a real difference, and that those with such wealth and success have an obligation to give back and to help society. But why do most wealthy people fail to realize that? Why don't they give a bigger portion of their wealth? Can you blame capitalism for that? Like I said earlier, capitalism itself is not the problem. It's the choices of people, or more specifically, the choices of the ultimate beneficiaries, those are the top, that are broken. Because our society's definition of success is, guess what? Broken. The current measure of success is how much wealth a person has. You've probably found yourself searching on the internet the net worth of a certain celebrity in order to see how successful he is. I've certainly done that, and I know that's a very materialistic approach. But if not for money and capital, how would we calculate success? Instead of relying on traditional metrics like wealth and status, we should consider success in terms of the lives we positively influence. I repeat that. True success should lie in the number of lives we positively impact and the lasting changes we make for the betterment of society. This leads me to something that I'm very interested in. Actually, yeah, before that, I think I will, and we came to the question why. Why should we invest in other people? What do we gain? Because at the end, it's about that, isn't it? What do we gain? Well, the answer is simple. Wise investment in others pays back. It's like a domino effect. First, the wealthy people devote a portion of their wealth to charitable causes, which in turn improves the standard of living for everybody. Healthier economy and healthier society then create even more nominal success for everyone. Remember, wise investment in others also improves your standard of living and benefits you, even if it's intuitively hard to believe that. So, yeah, here's what I'm interested to find out. Please raise a hand if you know who Bill Gates is. Okay, I see a lot of hands there. What about Warren Buffett? Once again, quite a few hands. And what about Chuck Feeney? Has anybody heard of Chuck Feeney? Oh, I don't think I see almost no hand. Okay, I think one or two people have their hands up. Well, so why am I even mentioning that person? Remember that guy that I told you in the beginning about? The one with the 8 billion? That's Chuck Feeney. He was an American businessman and billionaire. But more importantly, he was one of the most notable philanthropists. It was him that inspired Bill Gates and Warren Buffett to give their wealth to the masses and to create the Giving Pledge, which is a promise by the richest individuals and families to voluntarily give their money to the masses of people and to generally help society. I believe our world needs more people like Chuck Feeney, people who help others and who want to leave the world a better place, even though many of you don't know his name. As a future entrepreneur in a capitalist economy, it suddenly becomes my responsibility to invest in other people and to drive change. It suddenly becomes my job, but also your job, to change people's perception of success and to show them that they should be givers, not only takers. So, my final question is, when you succeed, what kind of person do you want to be? Chuck Feeney, or like the masses of incredibly rich people who have done nothing for society? Thank you, everyone.